Okay, so the Torah says that the Jewish people are allowed to consume only mammals that have two signs, two simanim of kosher. What are the two signs of their kosherhood or kosherness? The two signs that make an animal, a mammal, kosher. Again, this is a law by mammals, not by fish and not by birds. By mammals, if you look at the definition of a mammal, so biologically, scientifically, mammals are those who give birth to young, not to eggs, and they nurse their young as well, which goes together, at least for the most part. So in the mammal kingdom, there are two signs that make an animal kosher. One sign that makes an animal kosher is that they regurgitate their food. As a matter of fact, they have an extra stomach. For example, cattle, sheep, goats, deer, all these animals, they re-chew their cud. If you look at all the animals I mentioned, deer, lamb, sheep, goats, cows, oxen, you notice that they're always chewing. And you wonder, what are they chewing? The answer is that they're re-chewing their food. The food comes up and the food goes down, and the food comes up and the food goes down, and they have a designated stomach for that. And this is called malageda. The Torah says that a kosher animal must be malageda. And the Torah also says that that's only half of the story. If it's just malageda, it's a camel. Look at camels. They also chew their cud. And also, it has to be a second sign. What's the second sign? The second sign is that they're supposed to have split hooves. Their feet, their nails of their feet are supposed to be split in half. It doesn't mean that there's space between, but you could tell that there's a line that they're really split. They're two separate pieces. Their foot, each foot in each arm is made out of two parts on the bottom, not made out of one part. If it has split hooves and it chews its cud, says our holy Torah, it is consumable for a Jew. Very interesting. Actually, a pig has split hooves, just like a camel chews its cud. So it just goes to show that one sign does not make it 50% kosher. It's all or none. Either you have both and you're 100% kosher, or you don't have both and you're 100% non-kosher, even if you have one. Very interesting philosophical question. And relatively recent Russian Jewish history, and I'm going back around 100 years ago, there was a Jew living in a city called Dvinsk, born in a city called Rogachov, and his name was Rabbi Yosef Razin. He was called Hagoyin Mirogachov, the Rogachover Goyin. This Rogachover Goyin was such a brilliant man, it staggers the imagination of how smart he was. I mean it. He is a novelty in the last 200 years of Torah. And people are still in awe from the length and breadth of his knowledge. Because, you have two types of people, two types of scholars. One scholar who remembers everything, but doesn't go too deep. And then you have another scholar who goes really deep, but he doesn't know everything. But then once in a while, one of those people come along who are walking encyclopedias, walking complete libraries, yet their depth is not fathomable. He was the Rogachover Goin was one of those individuals. My grandfather met him, and it staggered the imagination. He knew the whole Talmud by heart, the whole Maimonides by heart, the Rambam. He knew everything word for word. He didn't have to think to process it. Everything was like like AI. It was like a man who's like the second you asked him a question, he quoted you 17 places from all over the Torah, verses word for word within 2 seconds that you asked him for a question. As a matter of fact, there are letters from him responding to people with questions in Jewish law, etc. And all he says is, look in this tractate of the Talmud, page 74 on the third line. Look in that book in page 85. Look in this book on page 2. And he used to answer people by just telling them where to look. Like he would tell them 10 or 20 places where to look. And if that person would spend the 2 hours to look through all those books, he would get the answer to the question he asked him. That was his level. Um, he loved my grandfather. He said my grandfather was very pure. My father's father. My grandfather was a very big tzaddik. So, and this man, he had an awareness. He knew how to read a tzaddik. Anyway, rumor in the family has it that he gave rabbinic ordination smicha to my grandfather. I haven't seen the document, but again, my grandfather came from Russia to Israel to America, passed away in 1991. But either way, why am I mentioning the Rogachover Goyin? Because he has an interesting question. It's a brilliant question. He says if you find the animal that fits the bill, split hooves, choose its cut, so we know it's kosher. What's the mechanism of what makes it kosher? Did Hashem give those signs to animals that Hashem knew on his own for whatever other deeper reasons are kosher? Or do those signs themselves make the animal kosher? It's a very important question. It sounds theoretical. Again, the split hooves and the chewing the cud of a cow, is that the cause of what makes the animal kosher? Or that's just God made external indicators just that we should know how to decipher what's kosher from what's not kosher, which animal's kosher. Anybody have an opinion on this? What would you guess? Do the signs make it kosher, or the signs are just signs that they are kosher already? Okay. Everybody agrees? Okay. We'll take the silence that everybody agrees. I say just say shtika kaida. If you argue with somebody and they're quiet, it means they agree because they didn't contest your words. Um, I would think so too. The problem is that the Torah says wording that says like this: "Ki malas gelahi," because it's chewing its cud, it's kosher. The Torah is pretty clearly indicating that actually is what makes it kosher. Why? Ask Hashem. Well, why can't you eat pork? And why could you? There's a lot of mitzvahs. Why do we have a paradum, a red heifer? There's a lot of mitzvahs that are statutes, and we wish we knew the reasons, and there are reasons. But this is one of the things where the Torah says, like, why can't you eat meat and milk? What's wrong? What's wrong with a cheeseburger? There's absolutely nothing wrong with a cheeseburger besides cholesterol. And that problem you're going to have also with a burger alone and with the cheese alone, especially the American cheese on the burgers today. Definitely a lot of cholesterol. American cheese food, right? It's not cheese. So those are statutes. Those are chukim. We don't know the reason. So we don't know the reason here. But that is actually, the Torah indicates, unlike what we would think, and I agree with you, that is actually the cause that makes it kosher. And you could ask a very interesting question. How irrelevant. Let me make a blessing on the lightning and the thunder. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oiseh ma'aseh v'reishis. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher koichi gurasim ma'le'elam. There's a beautiful two blessings we make on thunder and lightning. That Hashem does his actions of creation, because there was thunder and lightning in the beginning, and that his strength and power fills the world. So two blessings I made, because thunder's power sounds very powerful. So The question is, are we wasting time on theories? Even though it's not a waste of time to ask theoretical questions in Torah, it's a mitzvah actually to study Torah and to delve. But over here, it has halachic ramifications. Interestingly, let me tell you like this, an example, and this will bring us to a very interesting halacha that's not even known. And here's the story. There is a law in the Torah, hayotze min hatahir tar, and a mammal, an animal in general, that was born from a kosher animal is automatically kosher. Case in point, what if a cow in your barn gave birth to a calf, but lo and behold, the calf doesn't have split hooves? It has one hoof. Lo and behold. So the law is that the baby is kosher. That is the law, obviously. But not so obvious if you bring our question to the forefront. If it's the signs that are actually causing it to be kosher, why is the baby kosher if it doesn't have the sign? I don't care if it came from a kosher species. It's lacking the cause of kosher, which is the split hooves and chewing the cud. So you see what I'm saying? It is very relevant. It's a very serious question. So you can answer no. Still, it's apparent from other places in the Torah that the baby coming out of a kosher animal is kosher. So we know it's kosher even if it doesn't have split hooves. But the question is why? Is it because here's where the two ways come in? Is it because these signs such as split hooves are just that, signs? And if that's the case, yeah, I don't care that the baby doesn't have that sign. The fact that it came out of a kosher mother is my proof. I don't need another proof, another sign that it's kosher. Or the signs are cause, what makes it kosher. But the reason why it's still kosher, this baby, even if it doesn't have the sign, is because the Torah made a decree. The Torah decreed that the baby of something kosher is kosher. So the two ways to look at split hooves and chewing the cud, whether it's a sign and just a sign or a cause of what makes an animal kosher, are going to determine if the baby born without the signs from a kosher mother is kosher because we know it's kosher from the fact that it came from a Jewish mother, or because the Torah just said it's kosher, even though it should be non-kosher because it doesn't have those causing signs. Why is that relevant? Why? What's the difference if an animal without split hooves comes out of a kosher animal? What's the difference if it's kosher? What's the difference if it's kosher because the Torah just commanded it to be kosher, even though it should be non-kosher because it's missing the cause, or it's kosher because the whole thing is just a sign, and we don't need a sign because the best sign is it came from its mother. What's the difference if it's coming from as a decree or not? So the difference is an interesting halacha. In the Talmud, there is a tractate called Shabbos, and there's two Talmud sets. The Yerushalmi is not the Babylonian set of the Talmud; it's a Jerusalemite set. It's an interesting set. And over there, in Tractate of Shabbos of the Yerushalmi, in the end of the 9th chapter, it says an interesting halacha that we're not supposed to play games with kosher animals. You hear this? Not a known. It's a very obscure law, and you know, you can play with a horse, you can play with a puppy. You shouldn't play with a lamb. These are animals that are brought as sacrifices and other reasons. They're designated for eating. Maybe you'll eat them because they're kosher without slaughtering them. If you're not supposed to you're not supposed to play around with kosher animals. Interesting halacha. unless the Torah allowed you to. So the case in point over here is if you have an animal born with one hoof on each foot instead of split hoofs from a kosher mom, um, and the Torah still said it's kosher, even though, let's take the side that says it's missing the clause, so really it should be non-kosher because it doesn't have split hooves. Still, the Torah decreed that it should be kosher. So, could you play with this animal? And the answer is that you're allowed to, because something that the Torah permitted that's really supposed to be non-kosher, you're allowed to play with. And the Talmud over there brings the example that it says that there's a big whale. It's called the Leviathan, and Hashem uses it to play around with it. He plays around with it, and the reason why it's permitted to play around with it, even though the Jews are going to eat it eventually, it says when we all go to Israel, we're going to have a big meal with the Leviathan, is because it's a really a non-kosher animal that God made kosher. God is going to make kosher. It's a whale. So therefore, because God made it kosher, yeah, and it's not kosher by itself, therefore you're allowed to play with it. Unlike other kosher animals that are born kosher to begin with, then you're not allowed to play with them. So the case in point over here is it's complicated and deep what I'm saying. The case in point over here is, and I hope it's not a lot of information to process. I think it is, but the case in point over here is that if you have a kosher animal in a barn gave birth to a to an animal that doesn't look kosher, so if you're going to say that split hooves and or not, they're just indicators that an animal is a kosher species and kosher to eat. So then you're not allowed to play with this calf. You're allowed to eat it regardless, according to any way to look at it, whether it's a cause or a sign. So if you're going to say that it's just a sign having split hooves, and this baby calf does not have the sign, so still, we don't care that it doesn't have a sign because we know it's kosher because it comes from a kosher mom. So if that's the case, you cannot play. You cannot play a bunch of games with this animal. It's a kosher animal. You're not supposed to play. You're allowed to pet it, but I'm saying you're not supposed to have games and disrespectful games and ride on it and all that with a kosher animal. You're not supposed to. But if you're gonna say that split hooves and chewing cuds, they're what makes an animal kosher. And this calf doesn't have what makes an animal kosher usually. And the only reason it is kosher is because God decreed that something that really should be prohibited, which is this baby, because it's missing the signs, God decreed it's kosher anyway. Then it's similar to the Leviathan, to the whale that Jews are going to eat, that it says Hashem plays with it because God permitted something prohibited, and then it has one advantage over things that are permitted by nature, that you're allowed to play with it because it was non-kosher originally. It was just we're allowed to eat it now because Hashem permitted it. So Hashem should help us that we should indeed merit to eat this leviathan. I don't know if you ever saw this medrash. You ever saw this? The Talmud says the story. It predicts the future. It says a time will come and all the nations of the world and the anti-Semites, they're all going to serve God or perish, depending who they are. There's quite a few probably deserve to perish for all the evil and hate they bring to the world, whether it's on the comments or the internet, or by their actions, or by their words, or the way they treat other people. They usually mean to their neighbors too. Bad people are bad people, at least most. But so during that time, it says Hashem will make a show between the Leviathan, this big whale, and a big ox called the Sher Habar, and then the Jews are going to eat. The Jewish people are going to eat from the Leviathan. They're going to eat from this fish, and the skin of this whale is going to be used to make the sukkah on Sukkot to house all of the Jews, including those who will resurrect from the dead. This is what the Chazal say, and um, that's the future game that it's referring to. That it says it's going to be like a whole show between the cow, the ox, and this whale, and that's how the whale will be filleted by the ox, and we'll be able to eat it and use the skin for the sukkah. But it sounds like Hashem even plays with the Levyasan now. But Hashem help us, we should indeed eat from this Levyasan in Israel, in one big sukkah, like one family, speedily in our days. Amen. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to ask. Everybody's good? Yeah, it was a little bit complicated. Um, anything with the Rogachover, with this going of Rogachov is so complicated. He made a book called Safnas Paneach. If you're talking about, if you like real brain twisters, it's mind-boggling how smart he was. It's like, yeah, and this is just one question that he has. Like, are the split hooves and the chewing the cud what makes the animal kosher, or they're just the signs and all the ramifications? It makes such a difference. Like by the animal that was born without it, but it's a kosher animal. It comes from a kosher mom. So this is the stuff that he does. So it's a little bit complicated. It goes over the head a little bit, but maybe we could elaborate on it a little bit longer another time. Um, if anybody has questions on it, next time you meet me, I could explain it to you again. But it's a very beautiful. Basically the Torah concludes that the Torah by the end concludes that the split hooves and the chewing the cud, that is what makes an animal kosher. So I'm going to wish everybody a good Shabbos. Thank you for joining this year. You should be blessed. And sei gesund. Be well. Laila tov. Shabbos. You're welcome.